And welcome to the Dr. Tech Show on YouTube, where we are a show where myself, Pauline Roche, and Sweyn Hunter, and often guests, guide you through the world of online communication in a show which is the brainchild of the late, great John Popham. So let's start off with the week. And how has the weather been where you are, Sweyn, this week, and how is it now?
The weather now is terrible. It's raining cats and dogs, and I can't see more than 100 yards. Over the weekend, it was also terrible. Ferocious wind. Proper season appropriate weather for the time of year. Right.
Well, here in Birmingham, the sky is grey, but I have been out this morning and it wasn't raining, so I'm very pleased to report that, and perhaps I'll get another work later on. And we're looking forward to today to being joined by our guest, Caspar Kennerdale, who will join us hopefully shortly. But in the meantime, we'll go ahead with our usual awareness slots, what's happening around this time of year. And on the 9th of November in 2020 only, drug makers BioNTech and Pfizer announced their COVID-19 vaccine to be over 90% effective in a first look at the results from the phase 3 trial involving nearly 44,000 people. I hadn't realized, Sweyn, that it was so recent, only 2020.
Yes, only a year. But that was an announcement that was made it was so unexpectedly soon from when it happened that it seemed like it was a long time coming. But no, it's a whole year that we've been talking the language of vaccinations. Caspar is about to join us.
That's great. That's great. Actually, speaking of vaccinations, Coral, who was our guest last week, sent a message out this morning. I may have only seen it on Facebook. We're friends on Facebook. That you can now book your booster vaccine in England, maybe just if you're over 50, I think, and you've had your vaccination within the last, I think it's 152 days or something like that. Anyway, so we can now book it. You don't have to wait.
That's great. No, there are some boosters starting in Scotland. I'm quite a way down the list of, and I think it is maybe taking about 7 months.
Okay.
That's at the moment, but we'll just see how that goes. Welcome, Caspar.
Okay. Hi, Caspar. Good to see you again. Very good, very good. All the better for seeing you. How are you today?
Yeah, not so bad. Not so bad. Just jumping in and amongst different things. So yeah, I've just been Monday mornings.
Busy time for you?
Well, I think I've got a fighting chance of remembering the weekend if you can ask me that question by about 8:30, and it has nothing to do with a riotous weekend. It's just kind of like you just get to that age, really. I don't know, but no, it's good. I'm okay. I mean, just sort of like just trying to just get out there and do stuff.
Yeah, very good. Well, I was very pleased to see you recently at that Digital Unite event. Very, very, very nice to meet face to face, having met several times, obviously on Zoom. But it's really good. I do miss the face to face, and it's good to have that as a supplement to still doing Zoom stuff.
Well, yeah, no, totally, and I think as I was saying to a few people there as well, we've been locked down, and it's very easy to kind of think, oh, it's the shielded ones are the ones that have been locked in, but actually organizations, we're all out of practice. We need to re-socialize. But we also, the organizers need to also have confidence that people who either come out, it can be done safely, people want to hear what they want to say. So I think the kind of responsibility is a kind of a joint responsibility, is not necessarily quite the right word, but a joint effort, really.
To offer people options, really. I think that's what we've talked about in previous shows, haven't we, Sweyn, about having the choice of, so hybrid events we think might be a good thing to keep thinking about.
But I mean, I've also spoken to quite a few small organizations that used to do lots of stuff, more predominantly maybe around well-being or older people's charities and stuff, and there's a lot of hesitancy because what they don't want to do is for something obviously to go wrong, which is fair enough, very understandable, but at the same time there is some things that they can be doing and encouraged to do, and kind of so yeah, I thought that was quite interesting.
Yeah, good. So we're just going through a couple of the notable things we picked up around this time of the year, Sweyn, Caspar, if you just bear with us while we go through those, and we'll come back to you, if that's okay.
Yep.
So we've just covered the fact that the BioNTech and Pfizer only announced their vaccine to be over 90% effective in a first look at their phase 3 trial only last year. It was only 9th of November last year. So we've had a bit of chat about that one. And the next one we picked up was on the 10th of November in 1918, Western Union cable officer in North Sydney, Nova Scotia, received a top secret coded message from Europe stating on November 11th, 1918, all fighting would cease on land, sea, and in the air. And obviously we're picking that up because it's an online communications in code that some of our listeners might relate to from time to time. And in the 11th of November in 1675, now this is taking us back a bit, German mathematician Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz demonstrated integral calculus for the first time to find the area under the graph of y equals fx function. Now I just thought that was interesting because maths obviously influences some of the things that we do these days, is obviously continuing. So yeah, just caught my eye as one of those things to mark. Yeah. Moving on, so tomorrow, November 9th, is Social Media Kindness Day. And I think, was this one we picked up with Helen Reynolds, I think last year, Sweyn, I seem to remember.
We may well have done, yes.
No, that was Social Media Managers Day.
Okay, so no, you're right. I think this is something that we noticed online.
Yeah.
This one.
So this is a new event, set up in honor of the late Love Island UK presenter Caroline Flack on what would have been her 41st birthday. And the blurb says, in a time where social media plays such a huge part in people's lives, it's important to recognize the impact that negative statements and online trolling through any online platform can have on the victims of this type of abuse. So this was started as an attempt to raise awareness on the 9th of November for the need to hashtag be kind on social media on this and every other day. And you can find out more or pledge your support to this worthwhile event on that website, which is socialmediakindnessday.com. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, just trying to read that on the screen. So they're encouraging people to get involved by taking a selfie of you doing the love sign, which is that heart shaped with your two index finger and thumbs on both sides, and posting the selfie on social media and tagging in 3 friends with the words, I'm supporting Social Media Kindness Day with my sign for love. Let's play our part to be kinder online. Are you with me? Hashtag Social Media Kindness Day. So Sweyn, is that something that you'll be doing later on tomorrow?
Yes, I very well might.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I just thought that this was something that John Popham would have approved of. I think he was definitely one for making sure that being online was a positive experience rather than a source of stress or worry or worse.
Definitely,
so good one to mention.
And Caspar, you're a great online person. Does that appeal to you? Social Media Kindness Day?
Well, it appeals. It's a shame that it has to exist because I think that this was supposed to be a catalyst for positive change, and human behaviour has kind of hijacked some of that, but it does require different elements, different motivations, different projects to kind of pull that back. And I think that a lot of this is also helping people kind of make decisions themselves to assess the information before reacting, and having that kind of built-in kind of pause point, I guess.
Yeah, and that echoes the conversation we were having last week with Coral about, just not believing everything you read online and just, taking it with this pinch of salt, and then, reflecting before you hit the post button yourself.
Yeah.
So a couple of events, we've picked up one we referred to last week, but it's ongoing into December, so we thought we'd talk about it again. But before that, November 7th to the 14th is Science Week Ireland 2021. And this year, it's an annual event. And this year, Science Week will focus on creating our future, a national conversation between the general public, the research community, and policymakers. It's a week-long event in Ireland each November, celebrating science in our everyday lives. And it includes a wide variety of events involving industry, colleges, schools, libraries, teachers, researchers, and students throughout Ireland. And this year it'll have a number of regional festivals offering a range of opportunities for the public to engage with STEM across Ireland. So I think there's a number of things that can be attended to then. And on screen, Sweyn has the the list where you can kind of choose a county and find out where things are on your local area. And as you can imagine, there's things to do all over the country.
I love the URL for this event. It's Science Festival Ireland. I'm Science Festival Ireland, and the URL is sfi.ie. Simple as that.
Yeah. Quite easy. Yeah, it's nice to have a short URL that you don't have to struggle to remember. Great. And so the one that we referred to last week was the 100% Digital Leeds one on skills for supporting digital inclusion, and they're running an event, a series of events that started on the 1st of November, and they're running until the 6th of December. And the two that we covered last week, we covered one last week, but this week, the one that's running today twice is Digital Basics. And this is the one about finding out how to help someone set up their device in a way that makes it easier for them to use and get them started with the essentials like searching online, using email, etc. So they are going to be, today they will have taught people how to consider when setting up devices to make them as user-friendly and accessible as possible, and how to make the best use of them across your service. Session 3 next week is about platforms, and session 4 on the 22nd of November is about entertainment, and this is about finding out about a whole host of fun digital tools and resources linked to people's hobbies and interests, and how you can use them to inspire people to take their first steps with digital. And I think this is a more friendly, this is the way I certainly learn more. Examples they quote include a 360-degree tour of Buckingham Palace, radio station apps, and a range of games. And one of the things I like to do is I do Duolingo, the language platform, and I try to remember they do gamify it. They make you try and do it every day so that you gain points and stuff like that. So and if I think I'm on day 70 of doing it every day now. They do allow you to buy what they call streaks so that you can skip a day, but they cost 200, whatever they are. So you do have to remember that. You can't always have 200 on you.
The currency should be vowels and consonants, shouldn't it?
Yes, it should be. So, but it's good fun. What about yourself, Caspar? Do you do any of these games, entertainment online?
Well, I mean, I think the interestingly enough, the that kind of the content of that course, I guess, is of that particular workshop is definitely the approach that we take when we're trying to, I guess, just inspire people about some of the things that they can do, but we also try to make things either very contextual to something immediate, but something they maybe couldn't necessarily do in any other way. So, I mean, we've used quite a lot of things like 3D tours of, but funnily enough, we've done a kind of a flyby Buckingham Palace in the past. But I guess what you're actually showing them is that, unless you are an eagle, you are literally now experiencing or viewing something that you couldn't do in any other way. We just find that that's quite a nice way and a gentle way to kind of show some of the benefits without getting too bogged down with, transferring of data and storing this and who's doing that and why do I have to approve this. And I think that what we're seeing, just general browsing on the internet, is just becoming more complex with notifications. So it's actually nice to just demonstrate something that's a bit fun and almost not quite but almost tactile.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of notifications, Caspar, how do you advise people to navigate those, because they're a nuisance and I find them tedious, and but I know what to do. How do you advise people about how to tackle them?
I mean, I think broadly speaking, I think it starts off with, if you recognize the website and it's a trusted website, it's a brand that let's just say Sainsbury's, then I think if you're talking about the cookie, because we've done classes on cookies, and it's a very difficult one to kind of explain. Broadly speaking, you have to encourage people to kind of accept if they are just trying to get through to it, but then we use that as an opportunity to try to explain some of the data protection. We've gone into things around GDPR and why it's actually important for a website or a web company to kind of see the traffic on their website. So over and above data sharing and that kind of thing, it's more around just kind of what would be useful for the website to know about someone that's come to their site. So we come at it from that angle. but we also come at it from the angle around, okay, number one, Nectar Points, Sainsbury's, capturing probably even more information than you would be going to the Sainsbury's website. So it's not necessarily something to be afraid of.
Yeah.
Okay, something to kind of accept, be aware of, but also the thing that we do when we're talking about tracking of, where I'm going on the internet, we kind of, use the, bring in the example of, you can't walk into a library or a public space without your footfall being tracked. The difference is you don't know it's being done, and you can't actually access those figures. So just because someone is tracking you on the website doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing. So that's how we kind of approach it, because where we often have, and this is a real barrier for people, and the barrier, the camps of barrier, if you like, are generally people that will be very concerned about just any concept of information being captured, tracking, privacy. And we found that with if you like, those that are digitally, I prefer the term disadvantaged, so excluded, will be more heightened to this type of subject area, more sensitive. So the problem is that if someone is in that camp, pulling them back and bring it is not something you're going to be able to just explain in one go. You've got to come at it from different angles. So that person at this point in time, you've got to kind of, guide and show them some stuff. So in that sense, actually accepting cookies in that instance at least shows them the website.
Yeah.
The other problem that we have is people where there may be the technical difficulty of pressing buttons, which again is something that can be overlooked, because you'll have things that will pop up and then pop up over there and slide around and all at the same time, and then your lock screen comes on if it's your phone and all the rest of it, and all of these things layer over and over. And if you're not sure where you're pressing and you're not entirely accurate, it can also get frustrating. So in that respect, so I think, but it all starts off with actually being aware of where you are, and if you know where you are, you can then make a choice about where you're going to go. And if you don't know where you are, then close the screen down. So because actually you can go to another, you can come back another time. But it all starts with knowing where you are.
Yeah. Great. So Caspar, we didn't do a proper introduction to you at the beginning, but I'm very happy to do it now. Caspar is the Managing Director at ClearCommunityWeb, CIC, and he's passionate about digital inclusion, keeping things simple, safe, and building confidence, which I think you can tell from what the conversation we've just had. So Caspar, you've had some recent events and work that you've been doing that we'd like to talk to you about. So what are the things that you've been finding useful and exploring with people?
Absolutely. So I think what we've spent a lot of time running online classes, like a lot of people have over kind of lockdown, and there's a lot of good learning that's kind of come out of that. And I think as an organization, we are definitely going to be continuing with a lot of that. But what we do want to do is look at ways within which we can work with people personally again. I mean, we have been doing critical support, but in terms of actually classes and in-person kind of assistance, we've been wanting to kind of do that. And I spent quite a bit of time thinking about what this was going to take, what format it was going to take. We've been in a situation of lockdown, and I think we've got to use that to kind of see, okay, how can we change? How can we learn from it? So starting, it's in order to make a decision about what we were going to do in person, we had to really identify what it is we liked about doing stuff online. Okay. So for us, we've really defined and honed down our online format. So we run a digital awareness for older people class. I think I mentioned it before. When we started back in September, our first class had 28 learners coming to that. We've now got like 2 volunteers and 2 facilitators in that class. So it's like a huge class. And there's some nice things that we can do online, such as it's easier for us to demonstrate to a group of people, a larger group of people, things like how to change settings on a phone, because we can share screens and things like that. And there's something about that that means that we can deliver certain types of learning, or kind of a sharing of kind of people, just like websites and awareness, such as what you're doing here. We feel we can do that better online. But what can we do in person that we can't do online? And one of the things is really around observation. So we can observe online how someone is, what they're actually doing on their phone or on their computer, if they're able to share with us, or we can demonstrate how we would do it. But what we can't see is their body. So, and we were talking before about pop-ups and stuff like that. And actually, the difference between kind of someone accurately, clicking the accept a cookie button, could be the difference between a shaking hand, the wrong screen. It could be the wrong size screen. It could be that your sleep is set too short. It could be that your device isn't turned on. It could be there's a crack in the screen. It could be all of these things, and these are the things that we can only see in person. Okay, so we've started a program of in-person things, and the first thing that we've been starting is a series of drop-ins that we're following our kind of community tech support program, which is what we've been doing remotely and on doorstep via COVID. But now we're going out to buildings, so we're going out to community kitchens, we're going to community libraries, we've been doing some at health centres. So at the moment we have 4 venues throughout the week where we do a drop-in for local residents. And what we like about this is that we're trying to identify perhaps slightly unusual or slightly different venues from where we may have aligned ourselves before lockdown, because we'd be looking at going to where the people are already going for support. Okay, and if they're going for support there already, then whether it's might be a food bank, it might be benefit advice, or whatever it is, we're then at the very least saving them bus fare, right? So it's about looking at how we can align with where that support's happening. And what we found over COVID is that support is now becoming more visibly happening elsewhere. So it's not necessarily in GP surgeries, it's not necessarily in big fancy libraries, it's more where people feel comfortable, especially when we're talking about people that are I want to use avoiding the exclusion word again, but let's just say disadvantaged, or not in quite with the same opportunities as other people. You don't necessarily want to be quite public about that, so you go to where you're comfortable. And I think within that, then the theory, and hopefully it's more than just a theory, is that if you are in a more of an environment that is more comfortable to you, that may be more conducive to learning, picking stuff up, and therefore building confidence.
And I think you sent us a link to the drop-in type of drop-ins that you're doing, and you've got like several this week and next week ongoing now.
So we basically Tuesday, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays we have stuff, and what we're trying to do here is build a model that can be kind of scaled and deployed a kind of across our kind of local area. And the thing about it is, because what we've been forced to do, but we wanted to do, is really build a kind of a safeguarded approach of managing cases with people, of keeping a record of the work that we've done, and build that up centrally. So all of these community tech support dropping points, effectively have the support in principle of a kind of essential, more experienced support from staff here. So in principle, the support that we can give could either be for beneficiaries themselves, or actually maybe volunteers or other staff that are working with these points. But we're running all of these at the moment, and I think we've been doing these since September. And to give you just an idea of numbers, and it's not about showing off numbers, it's actually just to show that there is a demand. I think last week, over the 4, we probably helped between about 18 people, 19 people, something like that.
Right.
So that was over, I guess, on paper 10 hours, but the reality was probably more like 12. And some of those repeat people, some of those are kind of new people, and a combination of people with individual and known problems. And actually sometimes people just want to kind of sit down and quietly tap away in an environment where other people are doing that.
Yeah.
And I think the learning that we're picking up from this is that, we can then, I don't want to use the word convert, but if you've got a kind of a group of people that have got similar problems then, or a similar set of questions, then perhaps that's an opportunity to then create a class or some form of group session, as opposed to, because we were also finding that one-to-one is quite hard work for all involved. And we're finding a kind of a peak duration is around about 20-25 minutes with someone. And ideally they can then spend another half an hour doing whatever it is that you practice with them. And actually that's the investment. And I think that but for all involved, there's a kind of a tipping point, right? So what then happens is you could have got out, everyone could have had a really good time after about 20, but there's a little niggle. Do you know what, I'm just gonna we've got and then it's an hour and a half later and everyone's pulling their hair out. And the problem about that on one hand, I'm being a bit flippant, there is always a comical side to some of these stories, but a lot of that is also comes out of genuinely wanting to help someone. But it's if you do get into that second scenario, what we found is all of the good stuff that you learned in that first little bit is disappeared, because you're really just focused on that bit that you tried to do that didn't quite work. So just kind of reframing that.
And what age groups are you finding need help, Caspar? Is it we think it's mostly older people, but not necessarily.
No, well, I mean, I think we have different people, I guess, in each of the different locations that we're working in, and they may be defined by. So, for example, the Tuesday session is at AGK Croydon, and we do therefore, by definition, work more with older people. However, between these four walls. We get we have staff popping down with can you can you sort
very
this
interesting
out? etc. And always with all of the groups that we work with, the hidden person is the carer, because they kind of and we've done quite a lot of where someone's dropped someone off and then they're just waiting outside and they're trying to download a bus app or whatever it is. And it's like, they kind of come inside. So no, I don't think it's just older people at all. However, we are worked. So, and the reason why someone may not have a device is as much economic. So we do have work with we work with the housing not association but housing company called Homes for Lambeth, and we work with a lot of their residents, and there's a high ratio of English as a second language. There's some kind of refugees in there and stuff, but we also do work with a lot of adults with long-term kind of mental health or mild learning disabilities and difficulties. So different groups, different people. I think there's no kind of pattern necessarily to age. But with that in mind, what we have been trying to do is kind of target, if you like, sort of some younger, I guess, young families, and trying to. So we did create a course that we're sort of trying to run now, just called Family Safety Online, which is a bit more about family learning as well, and kind of again as a parent being less afraid about child's new app, and why don't you download it yourself and maybe have a look at the privacy settings yourself, rather than think that and by doing that, encouraging that could be a kind of a way to have a conversation. And it seems that with some of these areas, it's around if you can have an open dialogue, then you have a chance of preventing things like isolation and then being kind of taken under a particular wing, if you like.
Yeah. You're also doing a boot camp. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Right. So one of the things that we've seen, so we've seen that there are very few classes relating to mobile phones. So this is where this started. And mobile phone for a lot of people is the beginning of their journey. But it's also the thing that actually is that most critical tool. If you have a smartphone, then there are some things that you could be doing to get more out of it. And with that, we also have been just really researching and looking at different ways of people learning and trying to make things a bit more fun. So we created this, I mean, boot camp was just a name, but the idea is that we kind of come in as a group. And I think the mobile phone boot camp that we ran over the summer had, I think the first one had about 17 people, 18 people. It's quite a lot, quite a large group. So what we do is we come together as a group, but then we split off into small little factions with one volunteer or one staff and 3-4 people. So the idea is small group working and peer learning.
Yeah.
Okay. So some of our volunteers now have come through the classes, and people like, number one, it's quite nice to be shown how to do something in 2-3 different ways. And also different people explaining the same thing. One of them, might accord better with you. But so we kind of split up. We've got a little tracker, progress tracker, a little kind of like a bingo card type thing. So the type of tasks are, making your font larger on your phone. It's can I change the sleep time on my phone? Can I take a picture in WhatsApp? It's these really small, little useful things. But also very important to this is that, again, it's something that as a group of 3 or 4, it can be done in 15 or 20 minutes. Okay, so then at the end, we break out of our group, then we come back to a circle, try to get people to share some of the learning. So it kind of reinforces that learning a little bit. You're kind of motivating each other a little bit, and it's a bit more fun, a bit more social. And then the next week, the same again, you just go to a different activity. And it's a format we're kind of trialing. It's been, there's been a lot of learning. I wouldn't say it's been smooth so far, but it's been, there's something in there, and it really is that kind of the ones where, things have got a bit hectic and we didn't come back to the circle and stuff, weren't as successful. Really that kind of coming back and saying, actually, do you know what, this is what I did, or, really kind of seems to not only reinforce learning, but build confidence in the people in that group. And by doing that, then, okay, well, I the more, excited about the next week. So we ran that for 8 weeks, and we're starting it again this Friday with, funnily enough, the tablet boot camp. So I've got no idea. I don't know how long this is going to cycle around, but it's something that is also gives I guess volunteers or other people something that if someone presents themselves for the first time and you trying to maybe assess their skill level or something like that, you could use this kind of tracker to kind of help with that.
Yeah. What kind of ratio do you have of helpers to people needing help?
Well, we tried to have the group to be, we have had some groups of 5 people, but it's really 3 to 1. If we can. But if someone is there, so with the mobile phones, we did have to accommodate some people that were absolutely new. So because we were doing there were people that turned up with a box. Some there may have been a SIM, may not have been a SIM, it's just that kind of thing again. But these are real, if someone's been donated something or given something, they don't know the next bit. So with that scenario, then we've had to have, so I think a class of 17, I think there was five of us.
Well, I'm happy to share that I spent a good half an hour trying to put a SIM in a tablet only in the last 10 days for somebody. I got it in the end, but it's like it's not, they say it's intuitive. It's not, you drop it on the floor, you drop, the whole is,
how much of the sim do you need to use?
Yeah. Doesn't need to be in all the way, is there more than one way of putting it in? No, there isn't, but the tablet isn't necessarily, and it's not necessarily, you worry about damaging it because it's so tiny.
Yes.
So yeah.
But what's nice about this at the moment is simultaneously we're also rerunning, but for the first time in person, our introduction to using a tablet for the first time, and we call it Digital Horizons, and we've been commissioned to run one of those, and we have a couple of tablets and they've been able to low now, and that's in a different venue. So the idea is what we're offering them both running in parallel. So if you are doing the course, and you can access the boot camp if you like as well. So we're trying to give people that opportunity, which is why we did it this way round. We give them that opportunity for if you are able to, you've got two points of practice in the week, if you like, something a bit more structured, and then something, I guess, a bit more fun. But as a segue between the two, those that were in the mobile phone boot camp, those that wanted to come to the tablet one, we had a kind of an intro session last week where I had to hand out the loan tablets to those, and just wanted to make sure that people are set up. And what we did was actually, and I think that this was, I think was a quite powerful kind of lesson or message, because what we tried to be, one of the big questions that people ask is, how can you teach stuff when we on loads of different devices, and that's particularly on Zoom and stuff. And there is a point there, but also I think our overriding point is, actually technology requires us to kind of explore a little bit. So if I'm giving you explicit instructions about how it works on this phone, I'm losing you when you get your next phone. I would prefer to help you understand that a phone has certain buttons, and it's for you to find where they are, and if you do, you've got a better chance next time round. So this was a quite nice opportunity to. So basically, we're all sat on the table, we all had tablets. I said, and they were like, bated breath. What do we do next? I said, okay, let's get your phones out. They're like, what? I said, okay. So we got the phone and the tablet next to each other. I said, okay. So what we're going to do is first exercise on your phone. Who remembers how to do settings on the phone? Who can remember how to change the font size on the phone? Oh, yeah, we can. Okay, well, how do you do it on a tablet then? Well, I don't know. I've never used a tablet. Okay, well, why? Let's go back to those basic principles. And we actually spent a bit of time just kind of comparing. Comparing.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was just quite interesting.
I think that's very interesting. Yeah.
Definitely. And you're also doing a tea and internet sessions, is that right? Tea and tech.
Yeah. So before we were introduced to each other in the back in the 2019, we used to run this, what we call them tea and tech. I know seems to be a ubiquitous name, or there's various plays on this name. And there was part of me that kind of thought, damn, why have I chosen a name that everyone's using? But equally, people understand it. But our format of tea and tech is slightly different. These are always slightly larger, more social events. And the idea was to kind of have a talk, basically helping people become a bit more aware of some of the stuff that they could use technology for. Then there would be refreshments. So it really is a social gathering. But then in the second hour, there's an opportunity to either do some activities, sit with a volunteer and stuff like that. But we've also used this as a kind of, obviously a bit of promotion, but a kind of a way to kind of communicate maybe some broader changes. So it may be around like my personal bee in the bonnet about access to services and just helping people to be more conscious about what they can pick and choose and what they can use stuff for. So this one, we relaunched, and we had a staggering attendance, as you can kind of see in that picture. I think there were 32 learners, something like that.
Wow.
And the focus on this particular one was the access to NHS services. And there was an initial talk literally about how to find your GP online, which just Google it, right? Well, the thing is, if you know that your GP, if you know your GP's name, and you know it's the one down, the one by the roundabout.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily know the name of the GP surgery.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then if you see like all of a sudden you see such and such, practice group or such and such, it's like, well, that's suddenly, is that mine? I'm not too sure. So actually finding your GP surgery, and this is something that the NHS seem to miss out on, for those that know how to use the internet, and those that aren't quite sure of where to go, but they know, you can say just Google it, right? And they will just type the name in or whatever. But those that are digitally excluded aren't necessarily, they need encouragement to kind of say, okay, well, how do I sir? How do I find my GP? So the talk was really around, literally, you can search by maps, you can search by GPs near your location, you can search by keyword, and also how to determine whether or not it is the right GP for you. But then the focus was really around using the GP's website to get information at a time that's convenient to you. Yeah. This is on the understanding or assumption that it's up to date. However, that's not necessarily, that still means that you can go and check some information. And even if you dispute it or there isn't quite the right information for you, when you do get through to someone on a phone, you're able to kind of, ask better questions maybe. So this is really the level that we try to pitch things at. It's not about making appointments or anything like that, although we did kind of touch upon that. We had some other talks from some guests. So we had one of our local health watches kind of come down, and actually what fitted in quite nicely is that they did a little presentation on how we can have our say about our GP, but anonymously, and was actually showing, kind of verifying that is anonymous. And I thought that was an important thing. Right. Yeah. A very important thing. Yeah. And then the last section was around the NHS app. And I think what we tried to do is, the way of describing it is just really to kind of just have a little peek under the bonnet, have a little look. What can it do? What can't it do? We're not salespeople. We're just really showing them that, actually this is a direction. This is something that you could consider when you're ready. And knowing what it can and should do and what it will potentially do will be enough for some people. But and within that we kind of, what you have to do to download it, what you get for, well, free in inverted commas, i.e. what you get without imparting any information other than your NHS account, versus we touched upon the kind of so to get things like bookings and stuff like that, you've got to upload either ID, but most of that functionality actually isn't available or accessible yet anyway. And we talked about the opting in and seeing where your data is shared. So just kind of making people aware that they can kind of see where that is. So you don't necessarily need to be, it's not to devalue or dismiss any kind of concerns about data, but actually to have a blanket, I'm not going to look at this, doesn't necessarily help either. So we were just kind of showing them that, there is an element that they can kind of take control, but actually having a look at it for yourself is the first step to deciding whether or not you want to use it, and that's your choice really. So that's kind of, that was kind of our approach, and I think we're going to repeat this one in a few locations, because I think the level that we communicated at was I tried to do things at eye level, it's not top down, it's like it's peer, it's kind of, these are the things we've looked at, you might want to look at it yourself. That's kind of where and I don't really see many people quite communicating this message at quite at that level. And we had a couple of GPs in the room as well, and I've got to be honest, I was bleep and ping myself, because it's like, do you know what I mean? It's like, so the opportunity to really mess it up was huge, do you know what I mean? But actually, because I think that again, it just kind of comes back to, the people that need help really need help at a fundamental level.
Yes.
It's quite brave, actually, isn't it, of GPs to go to something like that, to admit, because normally they would want to something that was offered by the BMA or some professional body, and here they are in a community venue, presumably, getting basic information that people might assume they already knew.
Well, and I think this is an area that I'm trying to research, bang doors, bang heads together, whatever it is, just to try and, because like everyone, and I'm sure and I'm sure that most of your guests on this show kind of will just bang their heads, but people have the impression that they can fix this thing called digital inclusion. They've got that golden nugget of information that means it's going to be fixed, and I think that with a lot of so I've spoken to people that believe that the bridge to this digital divide is cured with having people placed in certain areas or whatever, but without any real consultation for the people there. And there's an assumption that just because you are this person and I've got to be, I don't want to be disparaging to doctors or GPs, but just because you fix that doesn't mean you can fix that.
Yeah.
And because this can't be fixed, which and which is why actually and I think, and funnily enough, the concepts of social prescribing, if you like, kind of, and I'm going off on a slight tangent, but if such a thing as social prescribing has to exist because certain conditions or certain situations can't be fixed with a single thing, then equally, digital inclusion can't be fixed. And I think that we actually see a lot of this work really fitting alongside or in parallel with things like social prescribing, but also citizens advice to an extent.
Yeah.
And when you look at it like that, then actually it has to be independent from the NHS. It has to be independent from councils. It can work with, but
I think you're right. I think we're not going to see the end of the digital divide. We're going to see alleviation of some of the results of it, and more people better informed, so that we can all help each other a bit more. That's for me, that the collaboration
keep moving.
They do. And digital changes and technology changes, and we're going to try and keep up with it ourselves and help other people to keep up a little bit as well, so they don't get left out.
But we think we think we might be fairly enthusiastic. We might feel some of it is intuitive. We know how to use a keyboard and stuff. But in 3 years' time, are we going to be able to do this? Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
We might be completely thrown. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've been through several generations of that.
That's why it's important that we have programs like this, so we can keep up with what's coming out and more stories. So, Caspar, that's really good. It sounds like you're really on top of all the things that's happening. And I think a lot of people who are doing, as we know, other programs up and down the country, hopefully will kind of listen to what you're saying. And if they want to contact you to talk about partnerships or about, working with you to do any more programs, what's the best way for them to contact you?
So there's the website is clearcommunityweb.co.uk, or you can email info@clearcommunityweb.co.uk. And this is how to, because I don't even know, or mobile phone number 07523 646 277.
Great, thanks.
And some of that information will appear in the description of the recording of this session.
Brilliant.
Brilliant.
Due course.
Because I think, like us, Caspar, you're about collaboration. You're not about keeping all the information to yourself. You're about sharing it out with other people, so we can help more people all the time. That's great.
Absolutely.
So we've got a few stories, Caspar, we wanted to kind of bring towards the end of the program that you might be interested in as well. One of the first ones was someone who tweeted on Twitter a couple of weeks ago about a Security 101 for Seniors presentation that she did, Daniel Young, which I picked up, and I got them to make it into a thread, reader app thread. And this was, she was saying about, she just gave a Security 101 for Seniors presentation to her mum and 10 of her best girlfriends, and they had a great time learning. These ladies are in their 70s and get bombarded with messages about how everything is hacked, and they want to be better informed about where to start. So Danielle spent a ton of time, she says, on password managers and the benefits of two-factor authentication, especially since it protects both them and their loved ones from getting phished. and their eyes were opened when they realized security is a community effort, especially when she, and this was news to me, she talked about how cheap stolen credentials are. Well, it wasn't news, but it was kind of an update on things. She says the stolen username / password pairs are less than $1 for 1,000 of these pairs. So it's $150 for 400,000 of them. So but what she's saying is, as Simon Finch has said to us previously, Sweyn, the data is out there, but two-factor authentication helps to prevent account takeovers, and that's what we need to be worried about.
Yeah.
Caspar, have you come across people, worried about their identity being, compromised like this?
All the time, but we also find with a lot of the people we work with, things like password managers and stuff are a huge jump.
Yeah.
So I guess what we focus on several things. Firstly, auditing and just knowing your password, what accounts you've got and what passwords you've got is a really good start. A little per personal audit. I can't remember the exact statistic, but it's something like the average person probably has about 80 passwords, something like that, who just without being particularly techie. But that could be accounts that are like 5 years old, right? We feel that your password security needs to be safe enough and needs to be something that's memorable, you need to have a system that is usable by yourself. So things that are just too complex will mean that ultimately you'll either get locked out because you can't ever remember anything, or you mistype stuff. I think what we find is the subject of, not the subject, but the case sensitivity of passwords really is quite a difficult one. So is if I've got a password that is password with a capital P is not the same thing as password with the small p, and a computer is unforgiving. It is one or the other. And if you've typed in one and it was the other, you've typed in the wrong password. That's quite a hard message with a lot of the people that we speak to. That's
one of those things that you were talking about earlier, Caspar, where there is a big kind of, once you've got it, and you can't remember what it was like not to know that.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think that's, as you say, it is something that trips people up when they're coming to this new, and it's just something that we all have to get through, I guess.
Yeah. And because so we spend a lot of time trying to get people to think about this, and also so for example, what it was, so let's just say case study person one will kind of come to the class. They always have a little book, and they will write down absolutely everything. They may not know, so they may not know what was what, but they've written everything down.
Yeah.
But if you glance over their shoulder, there's a certain person, and it's, I couldn't give you a percentage, certain person that writes their notes always in capitals. Okay, and you will know some of these people. You may be one of these people yourselves, but that's absolutely, so that person is going to write all of their passwords down in capitals because they used to do that. How you do a capital exclamation mark, I've got no idea. So
well, those special characters are another thing that vary tremendously between devices, how you access them.
Absolutely.
And I mean, from a personal point of view, I just decide to use some. It's pathetic. I use some services on one device and some on another purely based on how easy it is to enter my password. I mean, that's just one of my little foibles. And if I have to suddenly move from an iPhone, I don't know, to a Samsung phone or something, or something like that, the way you do that is completely different, and how they're all organized is completely different, and it is something that, I know that's the case. At least I know as I'm coming to the device that I'm going to have to struggle with this one. But if you're new to the whole subject, then that can be terrifically confusing, I'd imagine.
Well, absolutely. But that kind of comes on to a couple of points, because I think, what you're doing is you're creating a password that is convenient or memorable to you in a particular situation, which is true, and which is great. So actually, you might say, okay, that means I'll only administer this type of account in a particular setting. And I think that's quite because there is a sense that all of a sudden people want to do everything everywhere. And I think that actually, if you are, so this is the thing about online banking and stuff, just like, look, actually, I only just about now have some stuff on my phone because since I've got fingerprint ID, because otherwise I'll be sat on a bus trying to do stuff, and then that inherently, then I'll suddenly get up and it's the wrong. I'll have missed my stop, or I'm not in the right frame of mind. So for us, actually, it's about if you're doing important stuff, do it in a place that is comfortable. You can concentrate. Don't just assume or try to do everything all the time.
Good point.
Absolutely.
And I think so with that and passwords, it's like, okay, so for us, our fallback is your email must be separate from everything else.
Yes.
If you're not going to do anything else, you do that. But what we really focus on more than setting a password, and we focus more on this than password strength, password security, is how to recover forgotten password and how to reset a password. That's our lesson. That's our first lesson. That's what we try to start off with.
And as you said, the importance of the password that for that account that messages like that go to, whether it's a text message or whatever it is.
Because if you're comfortable,
so much else.
Yes, if you're comfortable with a situation of computer says no, and you can accept that situation and think, oh, okay, I now need to do something else calmly under my own terms. So it might be a bit annoying, but I can recover a password. Then all of a sudden you've taken away the importance of having to remember every single one, right?
Absolutely.
But through that you're becoming more resilient to troubleshoot. Because someone has said no, and you're like, okay, fine, let me work. Exactly. And you can't. These are the lessons we really try to informally get across. But if we did a kind of a course on how to recover a password or how to change it, I don't think we'd get many takers. Do you know what I mean?
It's just something you have to keep them back to.
You know what I mean?
That's part of something else.
Yeah, absolutely. We only have a few minutes left, so Sweyn, I'd like to cover the Helium Hotspot one because I think this will be relevant to lots of people, and also hopefully will give us a chance to once again try and get Chris Condor to come on the program to talk about Barn, because it's one of those things that has been John talked about in the early days of the program, and it's kind of been on my mind. So I'm going to make all great efforts to get Chris on the program. But in the meantime, we'll talk about Helium Hotspots, which is one thing I picked up recently on the Twitters. And we start off with a story from Twitter about how San Jose in the US has paid $10,000 to place 20 helium hotspots around the city, with officials predicting it will provide enough money to assist 1,300 low-income households with their internet bill. And from that tweet, I found a story then about linked to that about helium hotspots. I didn't know what they were on this arm.com website. No, that's right now.
Oh, good. Yes.
And it says that it explains the Helium Hotspot enables anyone to own and operate a wireless network for low power Internet of Things devices, which provides hundreds of square miles of connectivity and can transmit data at a fraction of the cost of a cellular network. It uses, this is technical language, but I'll read it out because it might be of interest to some people. It uses an open source long PHY architecture, which combines the LoRaWAN wireless protocol and the Helium blockchain. And the hotspots act as miners on the Helium blockchain, so owners can earn a new cryptocurrency, which might be relevant to some people who will be looking into that, for building the network and transferring IoT service data. So they say that smart pet collars, environmental sensors, bike trackers, or any compatible IoT Internet of Things that is device can connect to the hotspots without Wi-Fi or cellular networks, inspiring innovation and enabling new use cases, and is currently present in North America and Europe. So I went on to see what else was happening around these hotspots to find our next story. Sweyn, if you don't mind, the one from techrepublic.com. Yes. And this headline is that Helium expands hotspot network to Europe and releases personal IoT tracker. And this was a story from June of last year. And the chief operating officer at Helium says, we launched the first Helium hotspot last year, says Frank Mong. We're now in over 1,000 cities in the US and Canada. covering 700,000 square miles or more. And he thinks the most beautiful part of this, it's owned by the people. It's the people's network. Helium doesn't own it. So he goes on to explain, the article does, that there is a peer-to-peer wireless network that allows low-power IoT devices to send data to and from the internet, and users who own a hotspot are able to earn helium, which is a cryptocurrency, as an incentive for providing public coverage. So it goes on again to explain that the hotspots are powered by open source blockchain technology to create a blanket of connectivity when connected with other nearby hotspots, and they can cover up to 10 square miles. So the more people who invest in the hotspots, the bigger the network becomes. And having spread through 1,000 new North American cities within just 1 year, Helium decided last year to expand the network to Europe, with the hotspots beginning, they're expected to begin shipping in early July 2020, according to a press release. So the Mong says that you're not using any cellular, your Wi-Fi could be out, you could be out at the park in your national forest, and it doesn't matter as long as there's a helium hotspot within a few miles. And I just think that it sounds like it's got great potential for, kind of communities that we're dealing with and supporting up and down the country. Sweyn. So I think we should, look into this more and try and get more information about what's happening over here.
This was the first time I'd heard of this, and it looks very interesting indeed.
Yeah, so we'll try and find out more about that. But we have come to the end of the show, I'm afraid. Caspar, thanks a million for joining us again. You've become a regular now on the program, and we look forward to having you again in the near future.
Excellent.
But in the meantime, thanks for coming, and we hope everyone has a great week. Have a great week, everybody.